Hey there everyone, Drew Goldfarb from DGPicks.com, and I want to take a look and talk about this Arizona Coyotes situation as we are seeing it unfold in front of us and what I think lies ahead and why it's been so important to the NHL and to hockey as a whole to try and keep the Coyotes in Arizona. Let's talk about the backstory first. The Coyotes have been in a near constant state of peril since, at least 15 years at this point. You're talking about in 2009, the ownership group declared bankruptcy. There are so many failed attempts at selling this team. Jim Basile attempted to purchase the Coyotes and relocate them to Hamilton, Ontario. He even ran a season ticket drive, much to the NHL's disapproval at the time, trying to say that he could take the Coyotes and move them. And there were failed sales to the owners of the Chicago White Sox. There were a number of others that were rumored. The NHL stepped in and took over control of the team when the ownership group declared bankruptcy. And they held on to the team for a few years before they found an ownership group to take over. And all of this happened after they had found a new permanent home in an arena in Glendale, Arizona, where they relocated and eventually changed from the Phoenix Coyotes to the Arizona Coyotes. But that is so many ownership changes in between. And all the while, all of this uncertainty really hinders the ability to grow a fan base. And this is really where the shame lies in all of this, is that the Arizona Coyotes, the Phoenix fans in that general area, have not had an opportunity, have not had consistency from ownership, from where the team is playing, from any kind of knowledge that this team is here to stay for any kind of stretch in the team's entire history. They got there in the mid-90s. They finally moved into their, what was supposed to be a forever home in 2003 in the arena in Glendale. They were trying to move out of there years later. Within a decade, they were attempting to move and build a new place. They were eventually removed from that arena. And all of that just does such a disservice to the potential group of fans that are in that area. And all the while, I think rightfully so, the NHL was fighting to keep that team in the Arizona area. They did everything they could. They went above and beyond the league did to try and keep the Coyotes in the Phoenix area, in Arizona, to try and grow the game. And I think that that is where it is such an important part of the existence of a team like the Coyotes, and will be for the franchise if they do move to Salt Lake City. I think it'll be amazing for the growth of the sport there in the state of Utah and in the Salt Lake area. But this is what is so important about having a team in Arizona, having a team in South Florida, having a team in Las Vegas, having teams in these areas that are non-traditional. It's because that is how you grow the sport of hockey. If you go back 50 years, a third of all NHL teams were located in Canada, and there were only 3 teams south of Pittsburgh geographically. That was Washington, St. Louis, and Los Angeles. There was no team in Dallas. There was no team in the state of Florida. There was no team in the Carolinas or in Georgia. No team in the desert Southwest. No team in Denver, Colorado after the Rockies relocated. And you were talking about maybe the Houston Aeros of the WHA. But if you are going to grow the game, you need teams in these non-traditional markets. And I think that the biggest evidence, the biggest thing you can point to about why it is so important that the NHL try and get back into Arizona if this team is moving to Utah in the next week is Austin Matthews. He grew up, neither of his parents played hockey. He was a baseball player and a hockey player who, because of the Phoenix Coyotes, picked hockey. It would be great to watch him play Major League Baseball, but I don't think Maple Leafs fans or hockey fans in general would trade Austin Matthews, the hockey player, for Austin Matthews, the baseball player. And the Coyotes are the reason that he chose hockey. These are the guys that you want to see. These are the guys who are the cream of the crop, the top level players in the NHL. And one of those only picked the sport of hockey because the NHL made such an effort to keep the Coyotes in Arizona. And that is why I think it's so important that they try and go back. I think that they're going to give it every effort. That land sale coming in June, if the current owner of the Coyotes is able to acquire it and they're able to build the land, getting the Coyotes back there by the end of this decade, I think would be such an important move, not only because you don't want to lose a franchise and lose hold of a fan base, but because you never know where the next Austin Matthews is coming from. There are so many people who are in that position, and that is how you grow the game. That is why hockey is so much bigger of a sport across North America, around the world, than it was 50 years ago. And it's not to take anything away from the fan bases in Canada, because Quebec City, 100%, you guys could support a team. Hamilton, Ontario, no doubt that the Toronto area could support 2 NHL franchises and have a proper size fan base for both. But if you're going to grow the game, if you're going to create new hockey fans, you have to be in Atlanta, in Phoenix, in Houston. And I think that is what we're going to see with this report that is out there about the current owner of the Coyotes having a 5-year exclusive window where he can basically reactivate the team through expansion. I think all but confirms the NHL is going to be at least a 34-team league by 2030. And I think that there is the possibility it goes to 36, because there were also reports, Kevin Weeks among them, that the potential would-be ownership groups in Houston and Atlanta were meeting with Gary Bettman and the Board of Governors in New York City last week. So when you're putting all of that together, what I think is where we're heading next in the NHL, obviously it does look like the Coyotes are going to be playing next season in Salt Lake City, and that is going to be wonderful for the people of Northern Utah, for that area to have a team to go along with the Jazz to get into the NHL. I am so happy for them, and I am equally devastated for the people of Arizona who are a fan of the Coyotes. Hopefully, they will see their team come back reactivated Cleveland Browns style by the end of this decade, and I think we get to at least 34 teams. Whether that's Houston or Atlanta as the potential 34th team with Arizona, I think remains to be seen. Or if things are unfortunate, we don't see the Coyotes reactivated, I think we do still get Houston and Atlanta by 2030. And I think if we do get Arizona reactivating and there is positive progress in both Houston and in Atlanta to building arenas, to getting ownership groups there that are going to be able to support an NHL team, you might get to 36. And I don't know that that would necessarily mean Quebec City, but it would certainly work that way very well for realignment, because I think what ends up happening is, I think if Arizona comes back, I think they go back into the Central Division. Houston would also want to play in the Central to be in the same one as Dallas, which I think kicks Nashville to the Metropolitan Division. And Atlanta could go into either of those, the Metropolitan or the Atlantic. I would think the Atlantic in this situation where we go to 36 teams, or rather going to the Metropolitan, so this way if there is a Quebec City, that you would end up being able to put them in with the other Canadian teams in the Atlantic. And in that case, you're also having to boot maybe Utah to the Pacific Division to get them further west, or you just put Arizona into the Pacific, where they had been prior to Seattle's introduction as team number 32. So please do let me know what you think about this situation down in the comments, and let me know who you think will be team 34 if the NHL expands and gets Arizona back into things. And what's your team name for a team going to Utah? We saw the will-be owner of the Utah franchise requesting team name suggestions on social media just about a week or two ago. So what would you like to see a team in Salt Lake City called? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure you start your free trial at dgpicks.com for all of my NHL, MLB, and other betting picks, breakdowns, and analysis. See you next time.